Welcome to Mindset Matters Book Club YouTube channel. Please subscribe to hear new book summaries. And welcome back. Today we're going to be stripping away the clutter on a topic that I think it's fair to say affects almost everyone at some point.
It absolutely does. We are doing a critical deep dive into procrastination.
Yeah.
And the book that's going to be our guide is Scott Allan's Do the Hard Things First: How to Win Over Procrastination and Master the Habit of Doing Difficult Work.
Okay, let's just jump right into the core of this,
Yeah.
because the way Allan describes the feeling is just, it's so visceral. He calls it a storm of chronic procrastination.
Right.
And I think we've all felt that feeling of being trapped,
Yeah.
overwhelmed, disorganized, and just fighting this constant low-level hum of guilt and anxiety over all the things you know you should be doing.
And that avoidance, it doesn't just stay in your head. It creates real, tangible chaos. We're not just talking about a messy desk or an overflowing inbox, though those are definitely symptoms.
Sure, they're the outward signs.
Exactly. The real problem is a kind of profound disorganization inside your mental operating system. Every time you choose to put off something that's difficult or uncomfortable, you're strengthening a neurological habit.
You're training your brain to delay.
You're training it to delay. And over years, that becomes this heavy, destructive chain. And the result is, for so many people, just total stagnation. You just stop moving forward.
And that's really the mission of our deep dive today. We're not just here to summarize the book. We want to extract Allan's entire system. He lays out 22 steps, but we're going to focus on the absolute core principles.
The goal here is pretty ambitious, really. It's about helping you, as he puts it, win your life back one small victory at a time.
I like that. It's not about one giant leap. It's about small, consistent wins.
Exactly. It's about building a framework that actually works. But before we get into the system, we need to be really clear on what we're fighting. What actually is procrastination from a psychological standpoint?
Right. What's the formal definition?
Well, it's defined as the practice of putting off tasks, even when you know you anticipate that the delay is going to be counterproductive and needless. The key word there is choice.
It's an irrational choice.
It's a completely irrational choice. You're favoring a more enjoyable activity now over necessary work, which points to a breakdown in your own self-regulation. It's not just delay, it's irrational delay.
Okay, so let's start with one of the ways we lie to ourselves about this. Allan talks about the paradox of pseudo-productivity. This is fascinating.
It's the ultimate self-deception, isn't it? It's how procrastinators convince themselves they're being incredibly productive.
Because they're busy, they're doing stuff.
They look busy, they feel busy, but they're defaulting to tasks that are easy or maybe fun, but ultimately they're low value. They don't move the needle.
Right. The classic example is spending 3 hours clearing out your email inbox instead of starting the big, scary project that's actually due.
Allan shares his own story about this. He was working these brutal 14-hour days, sometimes right through dinner, and at the end of the week, he'd look back and realize
Nothing
important got done. He hadn't made a single bit of progress on his critical priorities. He was just stuck in that loop of answering non-essential emails, tidying his desk, all those little things that give you a quick hit of dopamine, that feeling of completion.
So that busyness is actually a defense mechanism. It's a shield.
It's a very sophisticated shield.
Yeah.
Your mind is wired to find the path of least resistance, so you use these low-priority tasks to avoid the heavy lifting of the important work.
And this gets into some really interesting behavioral science, doesn't it? This internal battle between what he calls present you versus future you.
Yes, this is what academics call time inconsistency or present bias. Our brains are just fundamentally wired to want immediate rewards over future ones.
So present you is the one in charge of the here and now.
Present you prioritizes immediate comfort, always. So future you, that's your logical goal-oriented self. Future you is the one who says, I'm going to save for retirement, or I'm going to run a marathon in 6 months.
But then the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. for that run.
And present you hits the snooze button. Present you grabs the sugary snack instead of the salad. Present you binges 3 hours of Netflix instead of doing 30 minutes of study. It's a constant battle, and present you almost always wins.
And this is especially true for goals that don't have that immediate urgency.
Exactly. If the reward is 5 or 10 years away, present, you basically sees it as an insignificant little speck on the horizon. It doesn't feel real. So we justify the delay.
I'll start saving after the holidays. I'll look for a new job after the kids are older. We've all said things like that.
And the years just roll by. You're always planning,
Yeah.
but never actually doing.
And that's the mental trap Allan highlights, this idea that the distance between the action now and the reward later causes us to discount the value of the reward.
It's a great analogy he uses. He says, it's like you're on a ship and you see a tiny speck on the horizon. You ignore it. It's nothing.
But it's not nothing.
It's not. That speck is your future. It's the deadline. It's the consequence. And you ignore it until suddenly it's rushing towards you and you realize it's a massive tanker and you have no time to get out of the way.
So if procrastination is about choosing that short-term comfort, the bill always comes due. And it's a huge bill.
A huge bill. It's a form of self-sabotage, really. It's an emotion regulation strategy.
Yeah.
You're faced with a task that makes you feel anxious or bored. So you choose an immediate mood repair, a distraction, instead of facing the discomfort.
This is the play now and pay later mindset.
And it is so destructive. The key mindset shift, the whole goal is to adopt the pay now and play later approach. You accept the discomfort now for a much better, less stressful life later.
Because the person who always avoids the hard stuff is living under this constant shadow of fear and obligation. It's a huge mental burden.
It's like a psychological shackle. And to really illustrate this, Allan shares this just startling personal story. He calls it failure by false intention.
Okay, let's hear it.
So he got a $600 credit card bill. It was for a card he barely used, and crucially, it wasn't set up for automatic payments. He had to physically drive across town to the bank to pay it.
Ah, I can see where this is going. The hard thing.
Exactly. With too much effort, it's uncomfortable. So he just tossed the bill on his desk and said, I'll do it later this week.
A false intention.
Completely false. He kept delaying. The bill got buried. He got a warning notice, then a final notice. In his mind, the anxiety of that simple drive across town was bigger than the abstract threat of a financial consequence.
Until it wasn't abstract anymore.
Not at all.
True.
The credit card company didn't just cancel that one card. They canceled his other primary credit card too. It completely destroyed his credit rating.
Wow. All from avoiding one simple, uncomfortable task.
A 10-minute drive. The long-term damage was severe. It compounded for years. He couldn't get loans. He couldn't even use credit cards for travel. It's just a brutal example of how prioritizing that tiny bit of short-term comfort can have these disastrous cascading consequences.
That story really drives it home. Procrastination isn't trivial, so the book makes you assess this impact across 5 critical areas of your life. Let's walk through those.
Absolutely. First up is work and business. When you chronically delay, you miss deadlines, you don't deliver. And that means you're disappointing the people who trust you, your coworkers, your manager. It just quietly erodes your reputation.
It's career self-sabotage, basically.
That's exactly what it is. Second is relationships. This is a huge one. It often shows up as avoiding the difficult conversations.
Oh, yeah. Talking about money or a disagreement or the future.
Right. You put it off because you don't want the friction right now.
Yeah.
But Allan notes that you delay and delay until your partner just becomes completely disinterested. They either give up or they go have that important conversation with someone else.
Ouch. Okay, third area.
Health and wellness. This is the obvious one. You delay exercising, you ignore symptoms, you don't eat well, and the outcome is predictable.
Weight gain, lack of energy, sickness.
Stagnation.
Yeah.
You pay the price in 5 or 10 years with chronic illness because present, you wanted comfort today.
Fourth is finance. You can work hard for decades, but if you keep putting off the hard work of creating a savings plan or tracking your spending.
You look up one day and you're 10 years older and no better off financially. Still living paycheck to paycheck maybe. That delayed decision can mean working well into your 70s.
And finally, number 5 is personal productivity.
The end result of all this delay is just profound disorganization. Physical clutter, digital clutter, and this endless checklist of unfinished tasks that's always running in the back of your mind.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. The real cost of procrastination is the peace of mind you lose every single day.
Okay, so if we tie all this together, Allan makes a really powerful argument. He says procrastination is not laziness. That is a critical distinction.
It's the most important distinction. Like you said, procrastinators are often really smart, hardworking people. The engine, the real root cause, is fear.
Fear of what exactly?
Fear of success, fear of responsibility, fear of the unknown, fear of making a decision. Task avoidance is just the wall we build to hide from that fear.
And realizing that is the first step. So what are these specific fears? The book breaks them down into 5 core ones. Let's start with the first, the fear of commitment.
This is what keeps people stuck in that analysis paralysis. You're waiting for the perfect plan or the perfect time to start.
You're afraid to take that first step because what if you get halfway through and decide it's not for you? Or what if you actually succeed and then you have all this new responsibility?
Exactly. Commitment feels permanent, it feels risky. But the counter strategy is realizing that motivation doesn't come before action. Motivation is a product of action. You have to commit first, and the motivation follows.
This reminds me of what Seth Godin says about shipping the work. We stall because we're afraid to put our imperfect creation out into the world.
That's a perfect parallel. The solution is just to move, to commit, knowing that doubt is going to be part of the process.
Okay, what's the second core fear?
A fear of the unknown. This is avoiding that mystical place that lives beyond our comfort zone.
Where things are uncertain.
Right. And our brain is a prediction machine, so its default setting is to imagine the worst-case scenario. It's trying to protect you. But the terrible irony is that when you fixate on that worst case, it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you stay where it's safe and predictable, even if it's miserable.
Allan's story about moving to Japan is a great example. He left a comfortable life in Canada, barely speaking the language. It was a huge leap into the unknown. But if he hadn't done that, he would have missed out on his dream.
And he also mentions his friend Debbie, who stayed in an abusive relationship.
Yes, because she was more afraid of what would happen after she left. The known misery felt safer than the unknown potential for happiness. Once she finally confronted that fear and left, she completely rebuilt her life.
That's powerful. Okay, the third fear is probably the one most people recognize immediately. The fear of discomfort.
This is the big one. Since procrastination is a habit we build by seeking comfort, the only solution is to retrain ourselves to do the opposite, to lean hard toward discomfort.
To build your discomfort muscle.
That's the goal. You have to accept that growth is inherently uncomfortable. So how do you train that muscle? He suggests starting small. The 2-minute or 5-minute rule. Just commit to doing the uncomfortable thing for a tiny amount of time.
Just to get started.
Just to break the inertia. And then you have to consciously resist the urge to escape into distraction when your brain starts screaming for it. It's a practice of mental endurance.
Okay, fourth fear. The fear of decision-making. This is the core of analysis paralysis.
And the classic line here is, let me think on it, or let me get back to you.
Which really means, I hope you forget you asked me.
Exactly. It's a way to delay commitment. But the price of that indecision is you eventually become irrelevant. Your boss stops asking you because they know you won't decide. They just go to someone else. The only way to beat this is to make a decision, yes or no, right now.
And the final fear.
The fear of negative feedback. This one is sneaky because it can lead to intentional self-sabotage.
How so?
You might fail a test on purpose, not because you couldn't pass, but because failing meets your own internal expectation of failure. You're often more afraid of the criticism you might get if you try and fail than the failure itself.
So you engineer the failure to control the narrative.
Precisely. The only way out is to reframe feedback. It's not a personal attack, it's a tool for growth. You have to internalize that even masterpieces get criticized. You have to act based on your mission, not on what other people might say.
Beyond those 5 fears, the book also talks about these internal coping mechanisms we use.
Yes, the little manipulative tricks we play on ourselves. One is self-isolation. You hide how bad your procrastination is, the messy books, the late projects out of shame.
The solution being to reach out, to get an accountability partner.
Exactly. Another is obviously distraction, scrolling, gaming, whatever. The key insight is that the problem isn't the phone, it's the impulse to check the phone. You have to notice that trigger, that feeling of anxiety or boredom, and choose not to react.
Then there's comparison, thinking, well, everyone else procrastinates, so it's not a big deal.
A toxic form of validation. The solution is to run your own race. Your focus has to be on your strategy, not anyone else's.
And I think this last one is really interesting. Valorization, or identification. Calling yourself a procrastinator like it's a badge of honor.
Right. You complain about pulling an all-nighter to finish a report, but there's a part of you that's almost boasting about it.
So what's the fix?
You have to strip away that identity. You consciously stop saying, I'm a procrastinator, and replace it with, I'm an action taker, or I finish what I start. You have to change the story you tell yourself.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so we've covered the psychology. Let's move into the actual war strategy, the practical system to beat this.
Right. And we can think of his first 7 steps as 3 foundational phases. Phase 1 is owning the chaos and gaining clarity.
And step 1, the absolute foundation of it all,
is taking total ownership. You have to drop the excuses, period. No more, it wasn't my fault, or I'm just not good at that stuff.
That's the denial that keeps you stuck.
It's the first failure. Once you take ownership, you gain power. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and you become the captain. The commitment has to be, I'm willing to do anything to become procrastination-free, even the uncomfortable things.
So once you've taken ownership, what's next in this phase?
Step 2 is moving from what he calls a plan to fail to real clarity. This means you stop making those endless, overwhelming to-do lists.
The architect's nightmare.
Yes. That's just a sophisticated way to feel productive without actually committing to anything. Instead, you create an anti-procrastination list. It only contains the must-do hard things, unfinished projects, broken things, overdue tasks.
And you have to filter it, right, to avoid that same overwhelm.
Vitally important. Narrow it down to 10 items or less. Then, from that list, pick the top 5 influencers, the tasks that will have the biggest positive ripple effect once they're done.
Okay, so that gives you focus. Now we move to phase 2, breaking inertia and committing to the start.
This is all about overcoming that initial resistance. Step 3 is simply decide now. You look at your short list of 5, you pick one, the winner, and it has to be something you can start in 10 minutes or less.
And the commitment is immediate. I'm doing this now.
And no more delays. And that leads directly into step 5, which is the power of time blocking 5 minutes.
The 5-minute rule. This is such a great hack.
It is, because something like 80% of the difficulty of any task is just getting started. 5 minutes is so short that it bypasses your brain's resistance. It's too small to be a threat.
So the goal isn't even to finish it in 5 minutes.
The goal is to generate momentum. You protect that tiny time block, you start, and more often than not, that initial movement carries you forward. It becomes easier to keep going than it was to start.
Love that. Okay, phase 3 is solidifying the contract, reinforcing the commitment you just made.
And step 4 here is to write it down 5 times. The research on this is so clear. Physically writing your goals down dramatically increases your chance of success.
And he says to do it 5 times specifically.
Yes, it clarifies your intention, it enhances your recall, and it's a form of mental rehearsal. You're etching the action into your mind.
And he's a big fan of physical over digital for this, right?
Absolutely. Use a physical sticky note. Put it on your monitor, on your calendar, a constant visual cue. If it's buried in a digital app, it's too easy to ignore.
Okay, that makes sense. Then step 6 tackles the biggest failure point for most people, accountability.
Because self-accountability doesn't work for most of us. It's too easy to let ourselves off the hook. We can always rationalize, oh, I'll do it tomorrow.
This is why top athletes and executives all have coaches.
Exactly. We will do things for other people that we won't do for ourselves. So find an accountability partner, a friend, a coach, anyone who will actually hold you to your promise. It creates urgency where there was none before.
And the final foundational step, step 7,
is the calendar commitment. You have to set a definitive, non-negotiable completion date. And he says to call it a completion date, not a deadline, which sounds more intimidating.
So you write it on a physical calendar.
The physical calendar, it makes an abstract intention, a concrete time-bound reality. And then you use the do not break the chain method. Every day you complete your task, you mark a big X on the calendar.
And that visual chain of X's becomes its own motivation.
For sure. The last person you want to disappoint is the future you, who has that perfect, unbroken chain.
Okay, those foundations are solid. Now let's get into some of the more advanced strategies for building and keeping that momentum.
Right. And step 8 is a really fascinating one. Mental rehearsal and vision. This is the art of creative visualization, but it's not just daydreaming.
It's more tactical than that.
Way more tactical. Think about Olympic athletes. They don't just imagine winning. They mentally rehearse every single step of their performance, moment by moment.
So if your hard task is, say, cleaning out a horribly cluttered garage, you visualize the process.
You visualize the entire process. You see yourself walking to the garage, opening the door, picking up the first piece of trash, putting it in the bag. You mentally walk through all the difficult steps.
And this actually tricks your brain.
It does. The brain doesn't really distinguish between an intensely imagined action and a physical one. So visualization literally tears away the fear and resistance before you even begin the physical work. It lowers that activation energy.
Cool. What's next?
Step 9 is all about the power of completion, and specifically closing what he calls open loops.
An open loop is just any unfinished task, right? Something you started but then abandoned halfway through.
Exactly. He says it's like having 50 browser tabs open in your mind all the time. It's incredibly draining. These unfinished tasks create stress, guilt, and real cognitive fatigue.
So the goal is just to finish one thing completely.
Finish one loop. That act of completion generates this powerful burst of momentum and satisfaction. It frees up your mental RAM and gives you the confidence to tackle the next thing.
Okay, step 11 tackles something we all do. He calls it stopping impulse snaps. What is that?
An impulse snap is that sudden random urge you get to check something or take a break when you're in the middle of deep work.
The urge to check your phone, grab a coffee, look something up online.
Exactly. It's the instant gratification monster rearing its head. These snaps lead you down rabbit holes. Suddenly, you've been watching a documentary for an hour when you were supposed to be finishing a report.
So how do you fight that?
You have to introduce a conscious delay.
Yeah.
When you feel that urge, you force yourself to just count to 5 or 10. Even better, use a pattern interrupter like box breathing.
Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4.
Right. That simple act of breathing interrupts the urgent emotional thought and brings you back to the present moment. You're strengthening your prefrontal cortex's ability to say no to the distraction.
Love that. Okay, what about step 12?
This one is about efficiency through automation. So many of the hard tasks we procrastinate on are repetitive. Filing receipts, saving money, tracking expenses.
Things you have to use willpower for every single week or month.
And willpower is a finite resource. So the solution is to remove the decision entirely. You automate the task. You set up a system where 10% of your paycheck is automatically moved to savings the second it hits your account.
So you don't even have to think about it.
You never have to think about it again. Automation removes the stress and decision fatigue from all those high-friction, low-value tasks.
Okay, and finally, there's a really clever technique called temptation bundling.
This is one of my favorites. It's based on the Premack principle, which says you can use a desirable activity to reinforce a less desirable one.
So you combine something you procrastinate on with something you really enjoy.
Exactly. For example, you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're cleaning the kitchen, or you only watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill.
Ah, so you're harnessing instant gratification to build a good habit.
That's it perfectly. The brain starts to associate the unpleasant task with the enjoyable reward, which makes it much easier to do over time. It's a brilliant hack.
It really is. So all of these strategies, they're ultimately aimed at one thing: breaking years of negative conditioning.
Absolutely. Procrastination is a learned addiction to comfort. And breaking that addiction requires a very intentional, multi-step process. First, you have to make a decision in the present moment to just stop and think only about the very first tiny step.
Second, he says to sit in silence.
Find a silent place, away from all the noise, and just let your mind settle. And then step 3, you have to identify and challenge your repetitive negative thoughts.
The inner critic. I'm such a loser. I can't manage my time.
All of that.
Mhm.
You have to write those phrases down, look at them, and then consciously refuse to believe them. He says to literally say out loud, "I'm done with you, get out of my head."
You have to kill that procrastinator identity.
You have to kill it and replace it with something empowering. I am courageous. I am an action taker. Your internal dialogue creates your external reality, so you have to rewire it.
Okay, so with that rewiring process in mind, let's apply this system to those 5 crucial life areas we talked about, starting with doing hard things for your finances.
Right. The actions here are simple, but they're not easy. First, you absolutely must track your spending. Use an app, use a journal, whatever. You cannot manage what you do not measure.
That's the uncomfortable reality check.
It is. Second, you have to consistently pay yourself first. Set up that automated 10% deduction into savings before you pay any bills. Third, dedicate 1 hour a week to exploring additional income streams.
Okay, what about doing hard things for health and home?
For health, the hard work is creating a clear plan and stopping your sabotaging behaviors. The key is to use a conscious interrupter. When you're about to eat that late-night snack, you stop and ask yourself, what will this do for my long-term health?
You force a moment of conscious choice.
Exactly. And at home, you have to deal with the broken things, a leaky faucet, a hole in the wall. These things quietly sap your energy and confidence. Make a list and decide. Are you going to fix it yourself or hire someone? Just make a decision.
And we can't forget digital clutter, the digital wasteland.
It creates so much mental overwhelm. The hard thing is to define a policy. Decide on one single location for all your files, one cloud service, and then block out time every week to aggressively declutter and organize until it's done.
And finally, doing hard things for relationships.
This is all about the tough conversations we avoid out of fear. The strategy is to plan the discussion in advance.
Don't spring it on them.
Never. You say, I'd like to talk about X tonight at 7 p.m. This gives both people time to prepare. And when you have the conversation, you have to focus on problem solving, not on being right.
Using I statements, not you statements.
Critically important. I feel this way when. Instead of, you always do this. You listen, you drop your assumptions, and you work toward a solution together.
So if we step back and look at this whole system, what's the big takeaway for someone listening to this right now?
I think the big takeaway is that this isn't about becoming some perfect productivity robot. It's about fundamentally confronting the fear and the discomfort that's driving your inaction.
The true limitation, that glass ceiling holding you back, it isn't external, it's the one you've built in your own mind.
Exactly. And the power to break that ceiling comes from taking that first, small, conscious, intentional action.
It's about consistent practice, turning that uncomfortable choice into a habit, one small win at a time.
By choosing the discomfort now, you are actively rewiring your brain. You're teaching it to stop running from the hard things.
We've covered the psychology, the costs, and the practical steps. From the 5-minute rule to temptation bundling, you have the system.
And there's a profound perspective from Mark Twain that really serves as a final call to action against delay.
20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover.
The time to take that first step, to challenge that impulse, to tackle that one small, uncomfortable task is right now. We really encourage you to apply this knowledge and start building that unstoppable momentum today.